Hello and welcome to Britain's ocean city of Plymouth, and I'm here on Plymouth Hoe on a glorious day with this iconic landmark of Smeaton's Tower just behind me, which dates to 1759. And Plymouth was also my home city. I lived here for just over 35 years and it's where my interest in trains began. So in this video I'll be featuring not only the mainline station at Plymouth, which attracts in the region of 3 million passengers every year. It's the second busiest station in the whole of Devon. But I'll also be moving to the suburbs, to the other 5 active stations at Devonport, at Dockyard, at Keyham, and also the 2 St Budeaux stations at Victoria Road and Ferry Road. And I'll explain later in the video why there are 2 stations there. It's going to be a bit of a passion, a bit of a nostalgic journey for me, this, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you enjoy watching the video.
On a day like this, it's easy to see why Plymouth is internationally renowned as Britain's ocean city, and it's the UK's premier marine city, famous for its waterfront and being home to the UK's first national marine park. And I'm proud to call it my home city. Well, it must be about 30 years or so since I was last at Plymouth Station, and the station concourse here doesn't seem to have changed that much, although it is quite a bright and airy space. One thing that has changed though is this original iconic railway building that was opened in 1962, and it's now part of the University of Plymouth. One of the things that I always found curious about Plymouth Station is that when you go to catch your train, you're board on one of 6 platforms, but never from numbers 1 or 2. A curious feature of the rebuilt Plymouth Station, which was completed in 1962, was the absence of a platform number 1. And a bay platform for it was constructed on the eastern end of platform 2. And this was intended for use by trains heading to Launceston, but the new station soon lost those trains and the bay was turned over for parcel use. And you can see a parcels train here in this photograph from 1969. There are 4 bay platforms at Plymouth Station, and these 2, which are to the east of the concourse, I remember seeing them being used by Royal Mail staff for loading letters and parcels onto the Royal Mail trains for travelling up country to London. But this all ceased from 2003. There are also 2 bay platforms to the west of the concourse, and the train that's coming in now is entering platform 3, which has been adapted for passengers. And this platform is almost exclusively used by trains on the Gunnislake branch line. The train that's next to it though is on a dock platform. This one is not open to passengers, but is occasionally used for stabling trains. There are 5 other platforms in use at the station. Platform 4 is used by mostly through services towards Penzance, but also for some trains heading up country to London. Platforms 5 and 6 are either side of the Middle Island platform, and they're used by a variety of services, including GWR local trains and also long distance cross-country services. And this cross-country service departing from platform 5 is heading towards Leeds. This GWR Hitachi Class 802 is departing from platform 6, heading to London Paddington. Platforms 7 and 8 are either side of a second island platform, and they are also used by long distance services. Here is a GWR Castle Class 43 pulling in on platform 7. It's come from nearby Lara Depot, where it's being prepared for its day's services on the Cornish mainline, and it'll be departing shortly to Penzance. This DB cargo locomotive is passing through platform 8. It's carrying china clay from St Budeaux, and it's on its way to the Riverside Depot at Exeter. Well, I'm now going to be heading out into the suburbs because there are 5 other active railway stations to the west of Plymouth. And I know some of these stations really well because it's where I began train spotting all those years ago. And the first stop along the line is at Devonport.
Well, this is Devonport Station, just on the outskirts of Plymouth, and there's been a station here since 1859. And in fact, between 1948 and 1968, it also had the title of Devonport Albert Road, and that was to distinguish it from the London and South Western Railway station over at King's Road. That, however, closed in the 1960s, and so the title of this station reverted to just being Devonport. And this station has a lot of significance for me personally, because I lived actually in Albert Road for a few years when I was a youngster, and this was the first ever station where I caught a train when I used to be taken to Gunnislake with a special treat on a Saturday to visit friends there. So it's a lovely station. It was very different in those days, mind you, with all the station buildings and the station master welcoming you onto the platform. So it was a very, very different place back then. But the station attracts about 35,000 passengers every year. And it's a lovely day to come and watch some trains here and to bring back lots of memories.
The station here at Devonport first opened in 1859, and over the years it's played a vital role in servicing the needs of workers and visitors to the naval base at Devonport Dockyard. As I said in my introduction, I would have first caught a train from this station around 1965-66, and the station then was staffed and it became an unstaffed halt from May 1969. The train that's coming into platform 1 is heading to Gunnislake along the Tamar Valley Line, but it's also possible to catch trains from this station to destinations such as Penzance, and also to Exeter, to Bristol Temple Meads, and even to Cardiff Central and London Paddington. I'm really pleased to see more trains calling at this station now than back in the days when I used to use it. You can just picture the scene with an excited little 6-year-old schoolboy taken on his first train journey from this very station on this very line to Gunnislake, and to think of the years of pleasure and excitement that were to lie ahead on the railways. Well, I've just come to the other end of the Devonport Tunnel, and this is the Haddington Road Rail Bridge, and I used to spend a lot of time here as a youngster watching the trains, and as a teenager I used to live in Tamar Street, just on the right hand side of the picture. You can just see it here, and our kitchen in my bedroom overlooked this stretch of the railway. From the opposite side of the bridge you can see Dockyard Station, which is my next destination. Along with nearby Devonport Station, this was another station that I visited frequently as a schoolboy, coming here after school with my pencil and notepad to spot trains.
Well, this is Dockyard Station, and as its name suggests, it was built here to serve HM Naval Base at Devonport, just down the road from here. And it's a station that I know quite well because it was one of the stations where I did train spotting when I was first getting interested in trains. And back in those days, back in the 70s and early 80s, it was called Dockyard Halt. But I know that the title of Halt is now being removed from the station, but it is a request stop. And as far as I know, it's the only request stop on the whole of the GWR main line between Paddington and Penzance. But if you know different, I'd like to know. It's well used by naval base personnel and also local school children, and passenger numbers are around 8,000 to 9,000 a year.
Well, I've walked down here a few times over the years. This is the way to platform 1 here at Dockyard Station for trains heading into Cornwall. The majority of stopping trains at this station use the Tamar Valley Line, with stations through to Keyham, St Budeaux, Victoria Road, Beer Ferrers, Beer Austin, Calstock and Gunnislake. There's also a few other trains that stop here, calling on all stations to Penzance on the Cornish mainline, and there's also 2 trains a day during the week to Cardiff Central and 1 to Bristol Temple Meads. This is a view that I remember well from my school days when walking through the park at the blockhouse on my way to school in Stoke Village, and this panoramic view of Plymouth's skyline taking in areas such as Malhouse, Ford, and in the distance there at Keyham. And as I pan the camera around towards Morristown is the St Leven's Viaduct, which takes the Cornish mainline between Dockyard Station and Keyham, and there's a lovely view of Devonport Dockyard in the background.
Well, this is Keyham Station, and there's been a station on this site since the year 1900. There were, at one time, very active marshalling yards just over on my left there. You can still see the remains of them where trains would unload their cargo to be transferred onto wagons that could then be taken into the nearby naval base. There's some sidings just down between this station and Western Mill Viaduct. They're no longer in use now, and the sidings are still there, but they're very overgrown. The station is on the Tamar Valley Line, which goes out to Gunnislake, and the station also attracts some high-speed trains which go down to Penzance and also up to London. And the station attracts in the region of about 13,500 passengers every year, and it's very useful for those personnel working in nearby HMS Drake.
These archive photographs show the station as it looked back in the early to mid 1970s. And these were taken just a little later in the early 1980s. Although Keyham had 3 platform faces, the up platform was in effect an island platform, and the outer one was rarely used by passenger trains, although the line was known as the up passenger loop, or later as the up back platform line. In its day, Keyham Station dealt with a considerable amount of goods traffic. Not only were there parcels and miscellaneous traffic, but also livestock horse boxes and prize cattle vans coming in and out of the station. This is the view looking down from Keyham Station towards Western Mill Viaduct, or as I remember it, Shaky Bridge. One of the most useful features of the bridge was that for many years there was a footpath that ran alongside it, and it provided a shortcut across the creek, and it saved a good 40-minute walk along the main road. As locals, we always called the bridge Shaky Bridge because when a train crossed its speed, it always shook the bridge, and it was great fun when I was a child.
Well, this is St Budeaux Victoria Road Station, and it's one of two stations in St Budeaux, the other being at Ferry Road, and that carries the Cornish mainline between Plymouth and Saltash across the Royal Albert Bridge. That station was opened in 1904. This one was opened by the Plymouth, Devonport and South Western Junction Railway in 1890 to carry its railway all the way from Lidford straight down into Devonport. In 1941, when Plymouth was being very heavily bombed during the Second World War, a connection was built between this line and the Cornish main line, so that the two could join just a little bit further up the track from here, in the event that if one was bombed, trains could use the other. Because up until then, the two operating companies were completely separate, running separate routes right the way through into Plymouth. Sadly, the London and South Western Railway closed to passengers in 1964. I was very sad about that because it was just before I became interested in railways. I would have loved to have travelled that line. But this line is part of the Tamar Valley Line, which travels all the way up to Gunnislake. And it used to be double tracked, but it was made into a single track. But you can still see the remains of the platform 2 just over to my left.
Some of my earliest memories of the railways was travelling on the Tamar Valley Line, and it was a treat that I was taken there on a Saturday by my gran to visit friends. And the Tamar Valley Line starts here at St Budeaux Victoria Road. However, St Budeaux has two railway stations, and just across the road is the entrance to St Budeaux Ferry Road Station, which is on the main line between Plymouth and Penzance. I always remember when travelling through this station as a youngster that it was the gateway to Cornwall, because about a mile or so down the track from here is the Royal Albert Bridge, which takes the Great Western Main Line across the River Tamar into Cornwall at Saltash.
Well, I've now come across to St Budeaux Ferry Road Station, which is on the Cornish Main Line. And this station was opened by the Great Western Railway in 1904, so St Budeaux has two railway stations. And the reason for that was the two separate railway companies, the Great Western and the Plymouth, Devonport and South Western Junction Railway, took their railways into Plymouth via two separate routes. But in 1941, at the height of the Blitz, a connection between the other line there and this main line was installed. It's a couple of hundred yards just down in front of me, and that enabled either company to use either line in the event that one line was destroyed by bombing during the war. This station has a very limited service, and passenger numbers reflect that. Around 2,500 passengers a year use Ferry Road, as opposed to about just over 8,000 a year using Victoria Road Station, which is on the Tamar Valley Line.
I mentioned in my introduction, the majority of trains don't stop at this station, and the main reason for that is the close proximity of its neighbour, St Budeaux Victoria Road on the Tamar Valley Line, which receives a train in the direction of Plymouth and Gunnislake about every 2 hours. The two lines meet about a couple of 100 yards up the track from here.
Well, that completes my visit to all 6 Plymouth railway stations, and it's a bit of a trip down memory lane for me this, but I'm now back at the mainline station in Plymouth, and I hope you've enjoyed this look around Plymouth's railway stations, from the main city railway station here in North Road right out into the suburbs at St Budeaux. Thanks very much for joining me, and there'll be more videos from Devon and Cornwall very soon. Take care, thanks for watching, bye bye.
Take a train ride just to see you, ride for hours just to please you. You don't know how much I need you, 'cause you're my home away from home, away from home, away from being alone. Run away from home, why don't you? 'Cause I did the same just for you. You don't know how much I love you, 'cause you're my home away from home, away from home, away from being alone. I don't wanna stay with you just to have to leave. If it isn't meant to be, you'll still be here eternally. I don't wanna say goodbye, I just arrived. If it isn't meant to be, you'll still be here eternally. I hope to make you my own before the train ride home. I hope to make you my own before the train ride home. I hope to make you my own before the train ride home. I hope to make you my